Hey, this is Lee Nevis, host of CJ and Cell. Thanks for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
Hello, everybody. It's No Filter Friday on Public House Media, and I both have LaCroix and tea this evening because Drake said get you somebody who can do both. Here I am. Anyway, we're going to talk about some things that people have heard of, and then some things that I probably shouldn't talk about, but we're going to anyway. So buckle in. Let me take a second to share the show, and you should too. Hopefully that's David Bobke coming in. If it is, let me know and tell me how it sounds, because that's very important these days. Let us take a minute and share the show. Okay. Post. Any hoozles. Let's see if I can. I'm going to do another sharing is caring. That's right, David Bobke. That is right. So hopefully there's a delay in that, so I'm going to have to go back to my own so I can see what's going on. And the quality is just not there. Okay, anyway. So we're sitting here with our LaCroix, and we're going to go over some announcements before we really dig into this. So, a couple things. I am headed to India again. So I think with this, I'm supposed to have an interview with a guest on Sunday who's like a really, really interesting, cool guest. So I think that's the episode that I'm going to leave for you in my absence, since the internet in India blows. And the last time I was there, I really wanted to do the show from there, but I couldn't do it because the internet blows. So I'm going to pre-tape an episode that Public House Media that we'll put out in my absence, and then while I'm there, drum roll, I'm going to interview the lady that runs Me Too India. To my knowledge, this is the first time. Oh, hello, people coming in. Can you leave a comment so I can see who it is? Because it doesn't just pop up for me on this window. And it's not cool. I can't stand that. Anyway, so to my knowledge, this is the first time that anybody who is a Hollywood person that talks about Me Too is talking to a Bollywood person who is Me Tooing on that side of the other pond. So it's pretty groundbreaking, if you ask me. So her and I are going to record an interview. It's going to be awesome. And the great thing about the situation going on in India and like Asia in general with their Me Too is that it's a little bit more, shouldn't say it's a great thing because it's not a great thing for them, but story-wise, it's a lot more severe there than it is here, if you can believe it. So we're going to unpack that bag in an interview, and it's going to be crazy. So I'm going to leave you in my absence. I'm going to leave you with a pre-taped interview with an awesome guest, and then I'm going to return with an interview from an awesome guest. So that's the really, really exciting part about it, is that we get to do all that stuff together, and like the show goes on even though I'm not physically here, but then we get to do this like explosive thing, and we're getting so close to the 100th episode. It's crazy. So that will just inch us closer and closer and closer and closer together, which I love. And then for the other announcements, it's also, No Filter Friday goes right over top of Female Filmmaker Friday. And this week has been so taxing. I cannot even begin to explain it. So I spent Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then a Thursday wrap out on this Toyota commercial for the Latin American Music Awards, and it's going to look beautiful, but Lord have mercy. These people ran me ragged. Ragged. So ridiculously, such a hard production, but whatever. It's over. It's done with. It's in the can. Thank God. On my wrap out day, which is Thursday, and then today, I got an email from the Producers Guild that myself and the director of this movie that I made called The Telios Act, we get to carry the producer's mark in our credits. So we had to change our credits anyway, so it couldn't have really come at a better time. And thank God, this is where the PGA like really rocks out for you, because you can get the producer's mark if they do it like a really thorough investigation and they see who actually made this movie, like physically made it, not, it just like kicks out all these like vanity producer credits. Because sometimes people will, like, I worked in this movie a long time ago where Snoop Dogg was on it, and because he was like the first name to sign on, he got a producer credit. Or if people put in money, that's an executive producer credit. So it like, it separates the wheat from the chaff, and that's absolutely necessary, because there are some people in this town that do not do dick except vacuum up credits and post on social media, be like, oh, I made this thing. And I'm like, no, you didn't at all make that thing. You just weaseled your way into it, or swooped in at the last second when all the actual work was already done. So with that being said, I kind of like reignite, because we have to get the poster redone now. To get the poster redone, we have to get our closing credits finished, because we opted, because of the way the movie opens. It's like, it's not a cold opening, it's a hot opening. It's like the hottest of hot openings. So we didn't want any like title cards and like credits and stuff like befuddling that. So it just goes straight into it, hot and heavy. So our title credits kind of look more like television than film, but it was a choice that we made at the time. So we're changing that around. And of course, we have to change our poster to reflect our new initials. But more importantly, we have to have it reflect the 3 film festivals that we're going to be in for the rest of the month. Movie Menu Podcast has a festival. It's at the Company of Angels Theater in LA. I did that podcast back around 4th of July, and we talked about the movie, and then lo and behold, we're going to be in their first festival that they're having. So they're super, super cool guys. Check out that. Although they're not on Public House Media, check out their podcast anyway, if that's something that you're into. So Evan, the director, will be here doing the Movie Menu Podcast Festival, and then also the Marina Del Rey Film Festival, which is also in the next couple weeks, coming very soon. I think we have to turn in the DCP on Monday, is going to be at the Cinemark at Howard Hughes down like Marina Del Rey Way, which is ironic because I spent an entire day there on one of our many, many company moves for this Toyota commercial. There, and anybody can get tickets to that, and you can go if you're going to be on the west side. So if you're the west side person in LA, go to the Marina Del Rey Festival if you want to see it. And then if you're on the east side, go hit Company of Angels, and that festival is actually free. You can get into that for free, although they have a suggested donation of $5. And then what else? Oh yeah, so while I'm in India, we're also in a festival in India, so our poster has to be updated to include the laurels for the festival that we won, our first festival that we won, and then 4 other festivals that we're selection for. Although maybe we'll wait till the end of these festivals to see if we win anything else, and then we'll, select our laurels accordingly. But I am out here twerking for a Birkin in the worst way, being absolutely run ragged. So those are my No Filter Friday, Female Filmmaker Friday announcements. So now we can get into this tea, which is what we're all really waiting for. So a couple things have happened. Bob Weinstein is doing a movie with Tia Leone that people are not happy about. Mariah Carey, as of 3 days ago, kind of started talking about Me Too, and she didn't name any names or say anything specific, but she talked about how, she would get into these situations and, like, people would try to have a moment with her, like, in the studio or see what they could get, and she would just laugh her way out of it. And she talked about how it was just, like, her response, like, just laughing, being like, I gotta go, bye! Like, was her way of getting herself out of these, like, predatory situations. And, like, that's another thing, too, that I don't think we talk about quite that much. Like, we did at the beginning of the show, but we haven't talked about it in a minute, so it's worth going back over again. Yes, sometimes you have, like, a James Franco situation like last week where it's, like, people that don't have a career, and they're like trying to have a career, and they're trying to get training, and they're trying to find a way to get into auditions, and they're trying to find a way to book work and, you know, become professional. So they just, you know, they're just out here doing things, out here trying things. They're like, well, I hope this works. And they're in a very vulnerable position because they're not union and they don't have representation, and like you have to build upon your career to like get that stuff. Those people are very easy to be preyed upon. But let's not forget, even if you are Mariah Carey, who makes $80 million a year and is, you know, not only a recording queen, but she's also a meme queen. Like, she's a very powerful person in her own right. Still, people try to, like, slip in there and do some weird stuff. But I don't want to take words out of her mouth, but you should really go look at what she said about, like, trying to laugh your way out of things, because I see that happen a lot with people, and you can kind of tell whoever is just, like, constantly laughing at seemingly nothing. It's because they've been laughing their way out of situations for a long time, whatever those situations might be. And you're like, I see a situation coming off of you, I can smell it, and I can hear it in your laugh. So that was kind of an interesting thing. But here's the tea of the week that I shouldn't be telling you, but I'm going to anyway, and I feel mildly conflicted in telling you, but we're going to do it anyway. And you know, in light of this, like, Bob Weinstein thing. So, speaking of Mariah Carey, after her and Nick Cannon got divorced, was dating Brett Ratner for like a hot second, and there's like a few pictures of them, like, yeah, lounging on the yacht in Cannes, and yet, you know, doing those things. And I saw her at the top of the Waldorf Astoria in Beverly Hills, and she came in with a dude that was like very Brett Ratner-esque, but it wasn't him. It was like kind of this like hairy, scruffy dude, and they're like security detail, but it was just the Jewish high holidays, so it was just Rosh Hashanah and then Yom Kippur, and they're very, you know, they're very, very close together. And Yom Kippur, if you don't know, is like the Day of Atonement. It's like, you know, go to synagogue and you know, atone for your sins that you have already committed, and then the ones you will in the future because, you know, guilt. And I heard that Brett Ratner and 4 other people were like, because like High Holiday Synagogue in Hollywood is like a really big deal, and it's like a ticketed thing, and it's like $400 or $500 a person, and it's like a thing. It's an ordeal. And apparently him and like 4 other people got like called up. I don't know what the word is for altar, but the altar basically. And apparently Brett was just like really quiet, like sat there and was like, like bare minimum participatory, was just quiet, took his atonement and bounced, which was kind of interesting because I think that's kind of, although Brett hasn't really gotten like legally caught in anything, for the most part, like not to the degree that like Harvey Weinstein or Bill Cosby or R. Kelly or like any of these folks have, but or even James Franco for that matter. But he's definitely atoning. I think he's going to be sitting quietly and bare minimally participating and just kind of falling back into the bushes for a very, very long time. So I thought that was interesting that he was like out, been like, I'm doing the thing and I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not doing anything. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm just doing what I'm told. They called me up here. I'm doing the thing, getting out. So, like I said, I felt a little bit morally conflicted about, you know, spilling the tea on somebody's religious experiences. But religious experiences in LA are a little bit different because it's like, you know, the dog and pony show of holidays. So let's get into this book that Ronan Farrow wrote. Yesterday, the Washington Post put out this article. Ronan Farrow overcame spies and intimidation to break some of the biggest stories of the #MeToo era. So there he is, Washington Post. What is interesting about that is like a few I don't know, probably a couple months ago, we did that Woody Allen episode because Amazon broke off their deal with him kind of because of this book. Not because of the book, but because of Woody's public comments about the Me Too era because this book was written. So they ditched his deal and they shelved one of his movies, and then he sued them for like breach of contract. It was like this whole big convoluted thing. Okay, so it says, investigative reporter Ronan Farrow, author of Catch and Kill, earlier this week in New York. His new book delves into the Harvey Weinstein and Matt Lauer cases, among others. Oh my God, Matt Lauer has been like back in the news again too. And he's not like, I did an episode on him a long time ago, but I don't know him personally. And I was reading this thing that Jennifer Aniston said about like, oh, when I heard that about him, it was like my dad doing something bad. And like, I just trusted him so much. I couldn't believe it. Like, why do you trust news anchors? Who trusts news anchors? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Like, do not trust news anchors. Don't. They're talking heads. They're given a script. They read it off a teleprompter. Like, there's no reason to trust these people at all. Unlike most journalists, most human beings, Ronan Farrow can tell you that it's what it's like to be tailed, surveilled, and tracked by people with possible sinister motives. Possibly sinister motives. Definitely sinister motives. Are you kidding? It is. That's kind of stressful. I don't want this to sound like woe is me, but I'll be honest, Farrow says, it's really hard when you're in those moments when you wonder if you're being followed, and if it turns out you are, it's frightening. For the few months in 2017, he nervously eyed suspicious-looking vehicles, spent nights in friends' apartments, and took evasive maneuvers, such as walking against traffic to foil him from following him in a car. A friend advised him, get a gun. Of course, everybody should stay strapped. Everyone, stay strapped. There's a number of these moments threaded through Catch and Kills, Lies, Spies, and Conspiracy to Protect Predators. Boom, boom, boom. Ronan Farrow is pulling it down. He has served more justice with this book before it even came out than most people will ever see. Farrow's chronicled memoir in his pursuit of allegations of sexual predation and against movie mogul Harvey Weinstein. As Farrow recounts, Weinstein arrayed not just some big legal guns to thwart him and other reporters, but a host of Black Ops characters and former Mossad agents, Ukrainian surveillance pros, European undercover operatives. Their mission was to monitor Farrow and other journalists who were closing in on Weinstein. One of Weinstein's sub-Rosa retainers was an Israeli intelligence company called, no joke, Mr. Bond Black Cube. I'm not going to get into it, but you can go look into some Israeli Black Cube stuff. It is very interesting. Farrow pierced this legal and quasi-espionage veil to land a devastating story about Weinstein, published by The New Yorker exactly 2 years ago. The story that started all of this, the story of why we're sitting here right now. The story, which followed by 5 days, a separate series of revelations about Weinstein in the New York Times, earned Farrow and Times reporters Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohy the Pulitzer Prize. More important, their exposés touched off a cultural avalanche. Within weeks, other powerful men saw their walls of privilege and protection come tumbling down amid the march of the hashtag #MeToo movement. Weinstein, who eventually was charged with sex crimes, including rape, faces trial in New York in January. He's pleaded not guilty. As you know, over and over again, if you listen or watch the show, because we talk about Harvey all the time. In the wake of this landmark, Weinstein's story, Farrow 31, went on to expose other powerful men and institutions, becoming the go-to journalist of the movement and the moment. The immediate follow-up to his Weinstein reporting was his disclosure of the catch and kill tactics employed by American Media Inc., parent and national acquirer, to suppress stories it sometimes later uses to blackmail celebrities. The phrase refers to paying sources for exclusive rights to their information and then withholding or killing the story. Among the beneficiaries of the tactic, President Trump, former Playboy model Karen McDougal, had told the Inquirer about her alleged affair with Trump, but her story was caught and killed by AMI during the 2016 campaign. They caught the wrong girl. They should have caught the story of Stormy Daniels. Although, because Stormy Daniels went guns blazing, but she's another story in herself. Farrow's subsequent reporting brought down CBS boss Les Moonves, a New York attorney General Eric Schneiderman, the later piece of co-written with Jane Mayer. Most recently, he revealed that the elite think tank at MIT had a secret funding source, the late billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The story promoted the abrupt resignation of its director. Surprise, surprise. Doesn't matter if Weinstein's dead because nobody's walking away from this. The hellfire will continue to rain down. Farrow, of course, is no ordinary reporter. Aside from his background as an intellectual prodigy, his mother, actress Mia Farrow, and his father is Woody Allen. Although both his parents have suggested at times that his real father is Frank Sinatra, to which Ronan Farrow quips, "We're all possibly Frank Sinatra's son." I'll leave it at that. That's true. I shot up at a house that was Frank's back in the day, and it was definitely a party pad. His family issues have been tabloid fodder ever since Farrow's sister Dylan accused Allen of molesting her when she was 7 in 1992. Allen, who has denied the allegation, is never charged with the crime, later married their sister, Soon-Yi Previn, making the director both Ronan's father and his brother-in-law. He is long estranged from Mia Farrow and the Farrow siblings. Dylan Farrow is both the muse and the moral center of Catch and Kill, as Farrow, as an investigative reporter for NBC News in early 2017, sets about investigating vague allegations against Weinstein. She appears repeatedly throughout his narrative to spur him on as his reporting runs into obstructive forces, including, he writes, his bosses at NBC News. Because all of these news organizations are owned by, like, the same people. Bless you, nudes. Hush. His bosses at NBC News, and his desperation to shake Farrow, Weinstein at one point tried to lean on Woody Allen to persuade Farrow to back off. His representatives later argued that Farrow's family history was a disqualifying conflict of interest. Dylan Farrow's experience in Allen's long-running efforts to suppress and undermine her account were kind of foreground for the story of the book, Farrow says, but he adds, "This isn't a story in which I'm a hero of her narrative. Long before the #MeToo era," he confesses, he'd sometimes ask his sister to shut up about her accusations. "I felt that I had to be nakedly honest and vulnerable about that," and writing his account, he says. In tribute to his sister, Farrow included some of her illustrations in the book. Befitting a Farrow story, Catch and Kill is a chock-a-block with scoops and revelations. I've never heard that word before. And most headline-grabbing is an allegation by the Today Show producer Brooke Neville's that she was raped by Matt Lauer, the program's co-host, when they were covering the Winter Olympics in 2014. Lauer, who was fired shortly after Neville's went to NBC's management in late 2017, vehemently denies Neville's account in a lengthy statement yesterday. The book seeks to answer questions that hovered in the background of his celebrated New York article about Weinstein. Why did the story wind up in the New Yorker when Farrow spent months investigating him for NBC News? It's because that's who would print it. Come on. How's that even a question? And Farrow's telling Lauer is the key to the question. His thesis is that Weinstein pressured NBC News and his executives by using AMI's accumulated dirt on Lauer to slow down and eventually stop Farrow's reporting on Weinstein. Farrow writes that NBC covered up multiple allegations against Lauer stretching back years by paying his accusers and ensuring their silence through non-disclosure agreements. He also writes, sound familiar, Mr. Weinstein? He also writes about several instances of workplace misconduct by NBC News chairman Andrew Lack and MSNBC's president Phil Griffin, making them vulnerable to exposure by Weinstein. In response, NBC News defended its record of covering harassment stories, citing its coverage of Bill Cosby, Jeffrey Epstein, and others. It was, Farrow says, a corporate cover-up. We've been saying that forever, but good to know that somebody's finally putting it in print. Farrow writes that NBC even had a corporate euphemism for its settlements that enhanced severance that enabled it to plausibly deny that the payments were hush money. Needless to say, it has touched off a battle royal with NBC. The networks has vigorously disputed Farrow's premise and his reporting about it. Lack said on Wednesday that NBC was unaware of any issues involving Lauer until Neville stepped forward, reiterating NBC's statement on the matter since the first story exploded. So they didn't get the maintenance order when Matt Lauer decided to have a remote door lock installed on his desk in his office? There's no paperwork for that. That's very interesting. Further, an executive familiar with the network's legal affairs said in an interview with the Washington Post that Lauer was the subject of 4 employee complaints, but 3 of them came in after he was fired filing Neville's allegations. Contrary to Farrow's assertions, there is no evidence of a pattern, earlier claims, said the executive who spoke with NBC's approval but would not be identified. In the days leading up to the book's publication next Tuesday, the network has launched a furious public relations counterattack against Farrow. NBC News president Noah Oppenheim has visited 7 news organizations, including The Post, to present an elaborate rebuttal, complete with binders containing timelines, interview transcripts, expense logs, and contemporaneous text messages and emails to and from Farrow and his editors documenting his progress on the Weinstein story. So supposedly they have receipts. Well, then let's see these receipts, shall we? Spill. The short version of Oppenheim's presentation is that Farrow's reporting wasn't ready, that he didn't have any of Weinstein's accusers on the record at the time. He walked away in frustration in August 2017. There was a wide circle of people at NBC News, and there was anonymity at the time, and there is now that we made the only decision that we could. Farrow's reporting hadn't met our standards for air. What exactly is their standards for air? But Farrow and his producer at the time, Rich McHugh, said they had several women on the record at the time and commitments from others to follow suit. They also had a damning audio recording of a police sting in which Weinstein admits to assault. NBC's actions were a massive breach of journalistic integrity. Oh, Lord. We're just throwing that journalistic integrity phrase around. My goodness. Hugh, who left NBC in 2018, McHugh left in 2018. They can do all that verbal gymnastics they want, but at the end of the day, they ordered us to stop reporting. Farrow's editor at The New Yorker, David Remnick, also said the reporting was well advanced, though not ready for publication. When Farrow initially walked into the magazine, it was published within 7 weeks. I mean, this just goes on and on. Basically, you get the gist of it here. Like, this book is really, really, really explosive. And I've been thinking about this for a while. Like, should we have a No Filter Friday, like, #MeToo book club? Because I feel like there's been so many good books that have come out that are not necessarily about Me Too, but about, like, the behaviors and, like, how it got this bad, why it is the way that it is, what would have to happen in order to, like, not necessarily fix it, but, like, heal from it, and, like, all of these things. I was thinking maybe we might go down the book club, or maybe the list of suggested reading, No Filter Fridays, list of suggested reading, if that's something that you are into. But anyway, this book is going to be ridiculous, and it wouldn't surprise me if more people don't die or end up committing suicide, quote unquote, because of it, because it's going to get nasty. This could very well be the boss round. Could be. But we will have to wait and see, and maybe have a No Filter Friday book club, possibly. So that is enough Me Too for this week. When I finish doing that interview on Sunday, I'll make an announcement on social media as to who it is, and that will be my recorded episode for when I'm away in India. And I will see you all for another episode of No Filter Friday with more tea and more LaCroix and, more side eyes, because that's, what we specialize around in here. And check out other shows on Public House Media. They're not nearly as dark or twisted or disgusting. And then when I get back from India, we will talk all about the meeting of Hollywood and Bollywood for that interview that I'm doing there. So check out other shows on Public House Media. Share this show, because sharing is caring. And I will see you all next week. Bye.